The jacket cost $415. You wore it 4 times. It's hanging in the closet right now, next to a coffee maker you bought because your neighbor mentioned his, and a pair of sneakers that still have the tag folded into the box, because you never found the right moment to wear them without feeling like you were performing something for someone. Here's what nobody tells you. In 2 years, on an ordinary Tuesday, something is going to happen that has nothing to do with any of that. No windfall, no promotion, just a moment alone in a parking lot where you realize you stopped needing any of it. We'll come back to that Tuesday. Stay with me because there's a second moment coming after that one, even quieter, that you won't see until it's already happened. Right now, you are somewhere in your mid to late 30s, and you have spent more years than you'd like to admit running two separate budgets. There's the one on paper, the one your bank app shows you at 11 at night when you can't sleep. And there's the one in other people's heads, the budget made of the car you drive, the jacket you wear, the restaurant you pick when it's your turn to choose. You have been feeding that second budget for years, and it has never once paid you back. You are not behind. Let's get that out of the way early because this isn't a video about how you ruined your 20s. But you are not exempt from what's coming either, because the habit of performing wealth doesn't announce itself. It just quietly taxes you every single month in ways you've never actually sat down and added up. So let's add it up slowly, the way you'd never bother to on your own. The lease upgrade on the car, the one that felt reasonable at the time because it was only $90 more a month, comes to $1,080 a year. The clothes and the small gadgets, the things bought less because you needed them and more because you didn't want to be the person who didn't have them, average out to around $340 a month for most people in your position. That's $4,080 a year. Add the dinners you picked because you wanted to be seen picking them, not because you wanted the food, and you're looking at another $2,100. The gym membership at the expensive place instead of the one 4 blocks closer, because the expensive one has a parking lot full of the right cars, adds another $600. Altogether, a person spending like this is putting out roughly $7,860 a year toward looking like someone they aren't quite yet. Invested instead at an ordinary return, that same $7,860 a year becomes just under $98,000 in 10 years. Not 200, not a million, 98,000. A specific, unglamorous, entirely real number sitting quietly where the jacket used to be. Here's the part that actually matters, though, and it's not the math. It's what your brain is doing while you make that choice every single month, usually without noticing you're making a choice at all. Spending to look successful gives you something investing never will, an immediate, visible reward. Someone notices the jacket, someone asks about the car, there's a flicker of validation, a small hit of feeling seen, and it happens right away, in real time, in front of an actual person. Putting that same money into an index fund gives you nothing to feel tonight. No compliment, no reaction, just a number that moves so slowly you'd need a magnifying glass to notice it changed at all. Your brain, the same brain that kept your ancestors alive by preferring the guaranteed meal today over the maybe meal next week, is going to choose the visible reward almost every time unless you catch it in the act. That's not a character flaw, that's wiring. But wiring can be worked around once you can actually see it operating. There's something else nobody warns you about, and it's not really about money at all. It's about what looking successful invites into your life quietly without you ever agreeing to it. The moment people believe you have more than you do, you become a target in ways that are almost invisible until they happen to you. You become the easier mark for the guy at the barbecue selling something with a fee structure he won't explain twice. You become the cousin people call first when the car breaks down, not because you offered, but because you look like the kind of person who could help without missing a meal. Some lawyers, the ones who work on contingency, quietly evaluate who looks worth suing before anyone else does, and looking comfortable is part of that calculation whether you know it or not. Visible money gets asked for, envied, or pursued. Invisible money just keeps growing in the dark without anyone standing in line for a piece of it. It shows up in smaller ways too, ways that never make it into the story you'd tell about your own life. The financial advisor at the community event who circles the room and lands, without fail, on the person wearing the newest watch. The salesperson at the dealership who reads your jacket before you've said a word and quotes you a different number than he quotes the man in line behind you. None of this is a conspiracy. It's just how humans size each other up instantly before either of you has spoken a sentence, and every signal you send out gets read by someone, somewhere, deciding how hard to try and get a piece of what you appear to have. If you've ever wondered how many of these reflexes are quietly running your financial life without your permission, that's exactly what a short free guide called The 12 Money Traps Your Brain Sets for You breaks down. No charge, just the patterns most people never get shown clearly enough to catch in the moment. There's a link below if you want to see which ones are still running in you right now, before we keep going. Now let's walk through what actually happens year by year if you stop. In the first few months, nothing dramatic occurs, and that's exactly the problem. Because your brain was expecting drama. You drive the same car another 2 years past when you would have upgraded it. You buy one pair of shoes instead of three. You notice at a dinner with old friends that you're the one suggesting the cheaper place. And for a second, you feel a flush of something close to shame. Someone mentions a resort. You say nothing about your own plans because there aren't any this year, and the silence sits in your chest a little too long. That feeling is real. Let it be there. It fades faster than you think, but not as fast as you'd like. By month 8, something shifts that's harder to name. You stop scanning other people's driveways when you visit them. You stop doing the quiet math of what someone's watch probably cost, the math you didn't even know you were running until you noticed you'd stopped. The comparison muscle, the one that's been flexing since college, starts to go quiet, not because you decided to be a better person, but because you're no longer feeding it new information to compare against. By the end of year 1, the checking account still looks about the same, but there's a second account now opened almost as an afterthought, with $2,200 sitting in it. You didn't feel yourself save it. It just accumulated in the space where the performances used to be. Year 2 is where it gets tested for the first time, and it isn't the transmission yet. It's smaller than that and somehow harder. A close friend gets a promotion and buys a house in the kind of neighborhood you used to imagine yourself in. You go to the housewarming. You stand in a kitchen twice the size of yours, holding a warm beer, and the old reflex rises hard, the tug to mention something, anything, that would put you back on equal footing in the room. You almost do it. You open your mouth. And then you just ask him how the mortgage rate worked out and let the conversation be about him instead of a performance of you. You drive home in your ordinary car and you feel smaller for about an hour, and then you don't. Around year 2.5, the account that was empty starts to have a number in it that surprises you a little every time you check, not because it's large, but because you'd genuinely forgotten it was accumulating without your permission. $12,400. Not from a raise, from the absence of 100 small performances you used to give without an audience ever actually asking for them. There's a smaller test before the Tuesday, one that matters more than it seems at the time. Work throws a holiday party in year 3, the kind with an open bar and a slideshow of the year's numbers, and a coworker 2 years younger than you gets recognized for a big year, and everyone claps. Later at the bar, someone asks what you're driving these days, half making conversation, half sizing you up the way people do at these things without quite meaning to. You say the model and the year, plainly, no defense in your voice, and you watch the question land and pass through the room without leaving a mark. Nobody follows up. Nobody needs to. The old you would have added a sentence to soften it, a joke about upgrading soon. The you standing there now just lets the sentence sit there, complete, needing nothing added to it. You drive home that night thinking less about the co-worker's bonus than about how easy it was not to reach for anything. This is where the Tuesday comes in. You're standing in a parking lot outside a hardware store, holding a gallon of paint for a room you're finally getting around to fixing yourself instead of hiring someone, and your phone buzzes. It's a group text. An old co-worker just bought a car you would have wanted 3 years ago, and he's posted it, and 3 people have already replied with fire emojis. And you feel the old reflex start to rise, the little tug toward comparison, toward needing to respond with something that shows you're doing fine too. And then it just doesn't happen. You put the phone back in your pocket, you pick up the paint. That's it. That's the whole moment. Nobody sees it. Nothing changes on the outside, but something that used to run automatically in you simply doesn't fire anymore, and you notice its absence the way you'd notice a sound you didn't realize was there until it stopped. That's the real transformation. Not a bigger number, a silence where a reflex used to be, But a quiet decision means nothing until something tries to break it. And 3 years in, something does. The transmission goes. Not a slow leak, not a warning light you can ignore for another month. It goes on a Thursday morning in traffic with a grinding sound that makes the man in the car next to you actually turn his head. The shop calls that afternoon. $2,300. Parts and labor, no room to negotiate. This is the exact number that used to send the old version of you into a small private panic, not just about the money, but about how you'd talk about it if anyone asked, how you'd make it sound like a minor inconvenience instead of what it actually was. Except this time, you already know what's in the second account, because you've watched it grow for 3 years without needing it. $11,000 sitting there, untouched, nobody in your life aware it exists. You transfer the money the way you'd pay for groceries. Flat. Uneventful. You pick the car up on Saturday, drive it home, and nobody at the next barbecue asks about your transmission, because nothing about you ever signaled there had been a problem in the first place. That's the part the old version of you couldn't have survived without some version of a crisis. The new version just pays the bill and goes back to painting the room he was already painting before the phone rang. Here's the second test, and it's quieter than the first one, which is exactly why it matters more. Year 4, a relative calls. Not asking directly, not at first. Just mentioning, in the way people mention things when they're testing the water, that things have been tight, that a few $1,000s would really help right now, that they know you're doing well. And here is the part nobody tells you about looking ordinary on purpose. Because you drive the same car you've driven for 6 years? Because your jacket is the same one from 3 winters ago? Because nothing about your life broadcasts room in the budget, the conversation doesn't go where it might have gone if you looked like you had it. There's no assumption sitting underneath the ask. You're free to help exactly as much as you choose to, on your own terms, instead of the terms your appearance already set for you before the conversation even started. This is the part of the mechanism most people never think about. When you look successful, you don't just spend more. You become a kind of public account that other people feel entitled to make withdrawals from, whether they mean to or not. Looking modest isn't just cheaper. It's a form of protection nobody explains to you until you've already paid for its absence a few times. By year 5, the second account has become something closer to real money, $61,000. Built from 7 years of a habit so small it never once felt like discipline. It felt most days like nothing at all, like simply not doing something over and over until the not doing became who you are without your noticing the transition. And here's the strange part. From the outside, your life looks almost identical to how it looked 5 years ago. Same modest car, a few years older now, same neighborhood, same haircut you've had since you can't remember when. Nobody would guess anything changed. And that's exactly the point, because the entire transformation happened somewhere. Nobody was ever going to see it. In the half second before a purchase, in the reflex that used to fire and now doesn't, in the quiet math you stopped doing about other people's lives. If you look broke and you're not, nobody asks you for anything, nobody envies you into an awkward conversation, and no one mistakes your silence for something to take advantage of. If you look successful and you're not, you're paying twice, once in the actual dollars and once in the exposure that comes with looking like a target for every hand that assumes you can afford to open. There's a version of you 5 years from today sitting in the same kind of ordinary kitchen, who has stopped performing for an audience that was never really watching that closely to begin with. He's not richer in any way a stranger could clock at a glance, walking past him at the hardware store. He just doesn't flinch when the transmission goes. He doesn't feel the old tug in the parking lot when the group text lights up. He picked the paint color himself, and the room turned out fine, and nobody ever needed to know what it cost him not to care what they thought. That's not a story about money. It's a story about what happens the day you stop needing your bank account to be visible in order to feel like it's real. It's the day the jacket in the closet stops mattering, not because you got rid of it, but because you stopped checking whether anyone noticed you weren't wearing it. If this changed how you think about the difference between what you spend to be seen and what you keep when nobody's watching, subscribe. There's another one waiting for you about the specific year most people quietly give up on this exact decision, and why that year is always earlier than anyone expects it to be.